Booktube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is my bookish week for Saturday, January 8th. You may see some edits because I may have to stop and cough. Believe it or not, I've had a cold for a week, and I've got the cough. It's not, I can't even think that it's COVID, only because I have no symptoms. I've checked, I've gone through the checklist. I don't have anything, and Claire is in the background behind my camera making faces at me. So,
love you too.
Yeah, go away. So, excuse me, I'm gonna edit and cough. Okay, and I've been drinking Dayquil like it's going out of style, and I don't know if I posted a picture on Instagram of the Dayquil bottle. Trying to get that sucker open is impossible for adults, never mind children. Actually, children can probably figure out how to pry the cap off of it. Yeah, so I'm getting over a cold. I'm fine. I had all last week off, and then I took Monday and Tuesday off sick, and I was in the office the last 2 days, and today is a school snow day because it's, I've got probably 5 inches of snow on my deck right now. So I stayed home and worked from home. I say today because I'm filming on Friday. But when you see this on Saturday, I'm talking about yesterday. Does that make sense? So, what did I do last week in a bookish way? Not a lot. I finished one book, and I'm going to talk a lot about why, but I am not at all disappointed about that. It's awesome. A lot of it had to do with having a cold. I just felt like laying there like a lump. I didn't feel like reading much. I didn't want to concentrate. Wanted to watch TV and try to sleep, and it wasn't easy. But I am not at all upset that I only finished one book. And I say only. I'm not at all upset that I finished one book instead of 2 or 3. I love it, and you'll find out why a little further on. Let me show you what it is. I finished The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. Brian from Bookish just did a wrap-up in his last Saturday Hodgepodge, and I'm going to link it below. And he posed a question about what we believe magical realism is in a novel. And I answered his comment, and he and I seem to agree on kind of the definition of magical realism and what in a novel constitutes magical realism. And he and I almost probably totally agree on this book in particular, The Sentence. He read or heard somebody review it saying that it contained magical realism, and it really doesn't. So, The Sentence is the story of Tuki, who is our main character, and she is I want to get this right. I don't know if it says it in the blurb, but she is a Native woman living in Minneapolis. And she was incarcerated for 10 years for a felony crime, actually got her sentence commuted and got out early, which was a surprise to her. So we read a little bit about her earlier life before being arrested. We read about the crime that she supposedly committed as to why she was incarcerated. And then the majority of the book is the time in her life after she's released from prison, and she finally kind of meets and marries the love of her life. And the story is, the majority of the book goes on from there. Tuki is an employee in a bookstore managed by her high school teacher, who kind of gave her a contraband dictionary while she was in prison. And that just meant so much to her. So when she was released, she went to work for Jackie in the bookstore. This book is so charming and melancholy and thoughtful all at the same time. It is the book to read this year if you are a book lover, if you are a bookstore lover, if you want to read more about Native culture from a Native writer. Louise Erdrich is a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. And, excuse me, a little froggy. And I think all of her novels are set with Native characters. It was so fun to read, but it's so deep in places, and thoughtful about the really deep aspects of these characters of Tookie and her husband Pollux, the other fellow bookstore employees. There's a lot in here about Native and Indian customs, and they do call themselves Indians in the novel. And there's a lot about the different customers that they meet in this bookstore. One of the customers has recently died, Flora, and she is now, according to Tookie, haunting the bookstore. So throughout the novel, Tookie's trying to figure out how to get rid of this ghost. And I think that's where a lot of the reviews about magical realism come in. Magical realism, to me, and Brian I think agrees, is not, it's about the action of the main characters, not the beliefs. So for a character to be described as a ghost who's haunting the bookstore, there's a lot of people that believe in ghosts. There's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that believe in spiritual beings. There's a lot of people that don't. Those are belief systems. Those are not the action of the characters. So if Tookie had some magical powers or took some action in a magical way, in an area of the novel that could not have been acted upon without magic, then there would be magical realism. Two really good novels that contain magical realism are The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern and Exit West by Mohsen Hamid. In those two books, the main characters cannot perform much of the action without magic, without something fantastical or supernatural. So those are books with magical realism. The action can't continue without magic. That is not the case with The Sentence. The ghost and the spiritual portions of the novel are belief systems. They're not actions. So it kind of makes the book more charming because the ghost, Flora, is a main character in the novel. And it was kind of sweet how these characters dealt with her, what they found out about her, and it came to a really great conclusion. One of the things that is so joyful about this book is at the very end, there is a multi-page list of the main character's favorite books. And this goes on for 3 or 4 pages, maybe 4 or 5 pages. And it's wonderful. It's got all kinds of books in there for book lovers and for Tookie, this main character. It's just a lovely book. It's so much fun to read. There's so many things that are just heartwarming and frightening. There's a whole part of the story that revolves around COVID and another part of the story that revolves around the murder of George Floyd and the aftermath of looting in Minneapolis. It's a wonderful book. I definitely recommend it. It might be a little bit different than many of Louise Erdrich's novels, but I really enjoyed it and definitely recommend that one. So that is the one book I finished last week. Why am I not disappointed? Because it was a really slow start to the year. And I'm going to continue to chat about this further on in the video in a few minutes. So let me show you I'm going to tell you what I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading Celestial Bodies by Joka Al-Harti. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. She is an Omanian author. This book is translated from the Arabic by Marilyn Booth, and it won the 2019 Man Booker International Prize for Fiction. This is the first book from an Omanian author that was translated into English. And this is the story of 3 sisters from a village in Oman who are dealing with and processing the idea of being married off or getting married or coupled off. And it's each of their perspectives. One gets married after losing a person who she thought she loved. Another one gets married, I believe, to get the approval of the family. And another one doesn't want to get married because she's in love with somebody who has emigrated to Canada. So I just started reading the book. So far, I'm really liking the writing and really interested in the story. When it came up back in 2019, I was really interested in it. So I'm really glad I I got that on my Kindle. And I am, oh, no, I'm not listening to anything. I was, hold on. Okay, I have a lot of coughing in this video. So I was listening to a couple of audiobooks that I DNF'd. I DNF'd Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. This is a book exactly what you would assume by the title. It is a history of medical apartheid, about medical care and destruction geared towards African Americans. And this is a book that documents the history of medical experimentation, medical non-treatment, surgeries that are practiced on African American people, either without their consent, with false consent, or with no positive medical reason or way to cure a disease or disorder, and just the degradation that was inflicted upon African Americans throughout history. And I'm going to bend for a second. This is the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. This is an incredible book to read if you want to read a singular story about kind of an aspect of medical apartheid. This is an excellent book by Rebecca Skloot. But Medical Apartheid is a good book. So fascinating. The information and the subject is fascinating. But I was listening to it on audio. Now, the author is a woman, Harriet Washington. The narrator is a man. And it was a little jarring to hear him narrate using the words I, or this was what I did, or my experience. And it's like, well, why did they not have a woman narrator? It was a mismatch for me. And his voice was very mild, and it didn't really fit the seriousness of the topic to me. It sounded more like he was a guy who would have done really well if he was announcing like an annual report at a corporate yearly shareholder meeting or something like that. I've been to some of those. But I could not continue to listen and justify the book, the topic, the author with this particular narrator. So I am going to get my hands on a physical copy and read it. The other audiobook I DNF'd was Cultish by Amanda Montell. This again was super interesting topic about the mindset and the attitudes of people who, or when they become kind of subject to or involved in a cult following or cult behaviors, or kind of a cult of personality. It even talks about Jonestown, Heaven's Gate, but it also talks about Soul Cycle and what's the other one? CrossFit and Lululemon. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But again, with this narrator and this audiobook, it wasn't working for me. And I was getting a little bit bored with some of the material that I was listening to. And I DNF'd those two audiobooks. I also DNF'd a Kindle book, but I can't talk about that right now. More to come, and that one's a doozy. So why am I DNFing? And I've actually DNF'd a lot more that I have not listed on my Goodreads. I will read, a page or listen to, 15 minutes of an audio, and I'll DNF it without even recording it. I've done that a lot, even in the last week. Why am I doing that? Because I've realized that I need to be really excited to want to pick up a book, whether it's print or audio. If I'm not really excited or I feel obligated to pick up a book, it's not gonna work for me. I'm gonna stop reading it. Do I feel bad about that? No, absolutely not. It's liberating because it frees up more time for me to reach for books that I'm really excited to get to. And so I have no guilt whatsoever, and I'm getting more time to read better books. And I think that's why I only finished one this past week. Honestly, I don't need a reason to finish one book, but I'm learning so much more about my habits as a reader from the last couple of years on BookTube. So let me get into a little bit of a chatty section. What did I learn from last year? I had a personal best of the number of books I read last year, but it was kind of exhausting. And what I learned from that is I was reaching for a bunch of shorter books to pump up my quantity Why? I don't know. It's kind of embarrassing to even say that out loud, but I didn't love all the books that I read, and I did DNF quite a bit, but I was wiped out. It was almost like I was on a hamster wheel of read and read and read. And it wasn't even really because I wanted material to talk about in a video. It was kind of like I was competing against myself, that I wanted to do better than the previous year and do better than the previous year before that. And I started to realize I was having a lot less enjoyment than I could have. So this year I have vowed that I am reading what I am excited about. And I'm also going to read more physical books from my shelves. I have so many, and I look at my shelves every day, and there are certain books that I get super excited about immediately. So I'm going to do that more. I'm going to pick up the books that are sparking my interest. And I'm not going to care so much about how fast I read or how many. I'm not going to automatically reach for the shorter books to fluff up my numbers. Not going to do that again. I have 3 super fun buddy reads that I cannot wait for scheduled this year. Only 3, and I'm very excited about that. In March, AJ Dunn and I are going to read Lolita. I can't wait because I have avoided this book for a long time. But AJ and I decided, you know what, I've read My Dark Vanessa, and I was listening to Reading Lolita in Tehran. I kind of also DNF'd that audiobook, but that's no big deal. And I finally decided it's time to read Lolita so I can get that context. And so after Lolita, I have a couple of other buddy reads, and I'm not going to get into those quite yet, but they're coming up, and I'm so excited. One is a book I haven't read yet. One is a reread. And I'm still kind of working on Heidi to read The Bell Jar with me this year. Heidi. But I have very few buddy reads on plan for the year. And I am so gearing up for the BookTube Prize because I just went through the list that Robert sent out for the books in the category of translated fiction. And I voted on the 20 that I'd like to see in the running. And I'm just so excited for this. I'm so looking forward to it. That's it for last week. I am about to start a book this weekend that, again, I am so excited for. And this is The Yield by Tara June Winch. This has been all over BookTube. I cannot wait to get started. By the time you see this video, I'll probably already be reading it. I am so excited for this, and I will talk more about this hopefully next weekend. And I am pretty sure I'll be done by then. But again, I'm not going to rush it. And I'm going to, if I get into it, I'm probably going to read the whole book without reading 14 other things at the same time. That's another thing I'm doing differently, is I want to get immersed in one book at a time. And what I've tried to do is have one physical book, one Kindle book, one audiobook all at the same time, because I read them in different places. So my physical book is when I'm at home and I have the most time, and I can't wait to get to this. So that's my reading week for last week. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe, and I would really love that. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.